Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker for this evening, Nicola. Welcome, Nicola.
Hi. Hi, guys. I guess you can't hear me. Oh, you can. Okay. So we're going to talk about building Windows Store apps, and we're going to use Windows Azure Mobile Services. Who here has actually used Windows Azure Mobile Services, or Azure in general? Who's been to the portal? Okay, so quite a lot of people, actually, half of you. So my name is Nicola Mitulev. I'm part of the Windows 8 Technical Evangelists here in Corp. So I work, unlike Jeremy, I actually stay here, and he travels around the States. And that's my alias and my email, and you can find me on Twitter. If you have any questions, just do that. So agenda for today, we're going to talk about Windows Azure Mobile Services. We're going to talk about how you can use Windows Azure Mobile Services data, use how to send push notifications, how to use auth, use the scheduler, and how to use diagnostics and scale. And we're also going to do a little coding. We're going to build an app and show you how you can actually interface your app with mobile services. So what is mobile services? It was built to actually make it really quick for your mobile applications to connect to a back-end service, so you don't have to waste time and you can push your apps really quickly to your customers. It provides a very easy way to store your data into the cloud, and provides a very nice REST API on top of your data, so you can use that to communicate with mobile services. And actually, we have a really nice SDK for Windows Store and Windows Phone 8, iOS apps, if you're interested in that, and Android is also coming. You have a question? No. We give you an ability to write server logic. What we call server logic. It's actually a way to intercept the GRUD pipeline and to enter your own business logic between all the GRUD operations. So if you want to, on each insert in this table, if you want to send a push notification or send an email, you can easily do that with just having some JavaScript logic, server logic on your mobile services. We're going to look into how you can do auth, so you can prevent data access to only authorized users, and you can authorize users through a Microsoft account, a Twitter account, a Google account, and Facebook account. And we're going to see how to do that as well. Mobile services also gives you a very easy way to send notifications to Windows Store applications, even Windows Phone and iOS. For Windows Store, it uses the WNS service. So you can easily send toast notifications, live tiles, badge notifications, even raw notifications. They recently just added a scheduler. So all your scripts that they used to writing for all your GRUD operations, and you can now write them to run on a specific time, and even you can run them on demand, and you can do things like backing up your database on a specific time, sending emails, accessing remote services like Twitter and getting data from Twitter or RSS, etc. And I'll show you how to do that as well. We have a set of logging and diagnostic tools we're going to go over, so you can see how much you've used of how much data you've used, how much data you've pushed out, how much time you've used, and you can log you can do some logging through your scripts. And then I'll show you how to scale your applications, scale them out and scale them up. So key scenarios for Windows Azure. It was intended for as back-end service to mobile applications. Currently, we have SDKs for Windows Store apps, Windows Phone 8 applications, iOS, and Android is coming very soon. There's actually been a lot of people actually written their own SDKs because mobile services use a REST API, so they just built an SDK for Windows platforms. And then we give you a lot of features that are very common for all your applications, so you don't have to recreate authentication for your applications. You don't have to recreate how to send push notifications on your service. Mobile services just does that for you, and I'll show you how to do that really quickly. And then rapid development. You can create your applications, you can create your backend really quickly and push your application to the customer very quickly. So I like to code. That's why I love my job. I get to code a lot. So I'm going to go in and show you, actually go to the Azure portal and show you what the Azure portal looks like, how to create a mobile service, how to hook that up to your Windows data applications, and how to actually send and receive data. So let's move on to our portal. So This is the Windows Azure portal, and here you can see we have the different services that Azure offers. And right now I'm in the Mobile Services tab. I currently have 3 mobile services. So to create a new mobile service, I'm simply just going to go to New and Create, and you can give your name to the mobile service. So I just want to call it WAMS Demo. And that should be available. And here, this allows you to hook up to an existing SQL database, or you can create a new SQL database on Azure. I already have a database, but if you don't, you can easily create a new SQL database, and this will automatically create it for you, and you can set up a username and password through this wizard. Yes?
Hook up to table storage?
Excuse me?
Is it possible to hook up to Azure table storage?
Yes. Yes. Oh yeah, the question was, is it possible to hook up to Azure table storage?
Right, I just didn't see that choice in the drop down.
And I'm going to use an existing one. And let me just use my credentials. Okay, so that's going to create an Azure mobile service. And the interesting thing here is you get with the preview, you get up to 10 mobile services. And you can actually use one database for all your 10 mobile services. And the way Azure handles that, it creates a different schema for each one. So you can have, for example, each one of your mobile services can have tables with the same name, and they can all exist on one database. And that's good for if you don't want to pay for multiple databases on Azure. You can only have one for all your mobile services.
It can all be done on one?
That's the reason why you can all do them on one, so you don't have to pay for multiple databases. Yeah. But if somebody wants to, let's say, have an application that's really popular, and they want to scale it out, then they want to create their own dedicated database, and they can actually increase the database, and I'll talk about that soon. So our application has been, so our mobile service has been created. So this created a database, hooked up to the database, created the REST API on top of it. So this gives us a link that we can actually hit and talk to it. There's nothing there right now. We're going to add some data, but it's live on Azure. So when we go inside, we actually go to the Getting Started screen. And here you can see you can choose what platform you want to get started with. And Android is coming soon, but these are the 3 SDKs that we currently have. And then you have an option of connecting existing store app or creating a brand new Windows Store app. If you already have an app you want to connect, you simply just follow these instructions. And it's very easy to get started within like 30 seconds. And today, we're actually going to create a new Windows Store app. So I'm going to go through this. So first thing, you have to have Visual Studio 2012. I already have that. You have to install the Mobile Services SDK. And that's just a quick download and install. And I've already done that. And then second, for this startup app, we have to have a to-do item table in our database. So if I just press this, that would just create the table for us. And it just goes to setup. So if we go back here and if we go to data, we can actually see we have a table called to-do item. Let me go back. And then here I can choose what language I want my application to be. For this startup, it will only give you option of C# and JavaScript. But if you're a native developer or a VB developer, the mobile SDK actually supports all the languages. But for just to getting started, the application that you can get from here is only in C# and JavaScript. Since most of you use C#, I think that's appropriate if we do C#, okay? So let's download this project. Let me extract it. And here we go. And I'm going to open it in Visual Studio. So this project has actually been already set up for our platform, has already been hooked up to mobile services, and you can actually run it right away. Let me run it and show you what it does. So it's a simple to-do application. Oh, resolution is too small. Okay, I guess I have to go to higher resolution. Give me a second. I think I have to go to the highest, because that's the 2 options they gave me. I'll increase the font for Visual Studio. Okay, let's run that. Okay, so it's a very simple application. You have 2 columns. I can insert a to-do item. So I can say item 1, save. Item 2, save. It automatically gets updated on the right column. You can see all my to-do items. And if I want to complete it, I simply complete it, and I can refresh the list. So it's a very simple application that you get off the bat. And All this data is already stored on mobile services. I'll show you in a minute. And let me show you the code first, see how everything works. So let me increase the font on here first real quick. Actually, I can just, let me go to app.xaml.cs. And you guys see this? Yeah. Can anybody not see this? OK. So the first thing that you notice here in app.xaml.cs, what we have this class, this reference to our mobile service. It's already been populated with our URI to our mobile service and also with our API key, so we can actually authenticate against our mobile service. So that's already been done for us. If you're starting with an existing app, you just copy this from the mobile service portal onto your app. So it's a static variable, so you can use it throughout your app anywhere. So let's see how it's been used in main page.xaml.cs. Oops, that's the wrong file. So the first thing, we have a class of to-do items. So this class will map to an item in our database. So it has two fields. It has a string, a text, and a Boolean, which tells us if it's complete or not. So it's a very simple class. And then in our main page.xaml, we have a reference to our table, actually mobile services. So we simply, to get this reference, we simply call app.mobileservices.getTable with the type of the item that we want. And since we already defined to-do item above it. And then to insert just a single to-do item, it's only one line of code. We simply await insert async, and we just pass it the to-do item. If we want to get item or read an item, also one line. And we can actually do some pretty interesting queries through link. So we can do, I want the items that are not completed. And this actually gets executed on the server. It's not executed on the client. You only get the items that you want. And then to update an item, also just one line, just call update async. And then delete is not shown on here, but it's also just one line, delete async. You have a question? No? OK, sorry. Okay, and let me show you what it looks like on Azure. So if we go to data, and if we drill down to our table, we can actually see that we have the two items that we just created. So that was automatically done. And that was just a few lines of code, and we already hooked up to mobile services. OK. Let me go back to our slides. OK. Yes?
How do you modify the structure of that table? So you created it through that menu saying create to table. What if I want to have a different structure?
Yeah, you can have any different structure. I'm going to talk about dynamic schema. The way it works, actually, sorry, the question was how do you create your own structure? How do you create your own class for mobile services? You can create your class, and the way dynamic schema works is when you send your class, your object to mobile services, it looks at all the fields of the JSON object. It talks through JSON. It looks at all the fields. It automatically translates that to your database and creates the column automatically as it needs to create them. And I'll show you how that works soon. OK? Yeah.
Where in your code can you do a call to create database? Or
how do you auto-create database? How do you auto-create a table? Yeah, so tables, we want the developer to actually create it manually. We don't want the tables to be generated dynamically. So each time, so if you notice, before I downloaded my applications, I pressed that create my to-do item table. That automatically created this to-do item table for me. If I wanted to create a new table, I could just simply go here, give it a name, and that will create another table. And then I have a class called table in my code that I can have different kinds of fields. Yes?
Servicing, like if you need to change your structure later on?
Yeah, so the dynamic schema is smart enough to actually just modify the database. It's not going to remove any columns. So all the old items you've already inserted are going to stay the same. But if you insert a different item that you've changed the structure of, dynamic schema will look in your item and it dynamically create all the columns that it needs to for the new items that you've added, new fields you've added. Any questions? No? Yes? Sorry.
Right now, sorry. Well, I want to know if I saw this right. When you first created that database, it had nothing in it, no columns?
Yes, no columns.
And then the columns were created as you ran the engine.
Exactly, yeah. And you can turn on that dynamic schema on and off. Go here. Oh, sorry. configure. Here we go. So you can go to enable dynamic schema. So if you turn that off, and if you try to insert let's say an item that has fields that are not already created, columns in the database, it will just drop the item and won't insert it. It will just say, sorry, I don't know what this is. I can't insert it into the table. I don't have any columns for this. So this is useful when you're developing. So you can create this and you turn it on. And when you release your application, you can just turn it off. So if somebody gets a hold of your API key and tries to insert items, and you don't want them to automatically create a bunch of different columns. You had a question?
I was wondering, like, at this stage in the application, the database has no notion of which user created it, right?
No, not yet. So we're going to talk about soon, yeah. And let me go back to my slides. OK, so I already talked about the different schema that mobile service already creates. So you can have multiple mobile services on one same database. So if you have a mobile service app X and mobile service app Y, and they both have the same table, they just uses that schema to create both tables in the same database. And then if you want to manage your data yourself in SQL, use SQL Azure. So you can just go to the portal or the SQL portal, use SQL Management Studio, and you can use the REST API. And there's a new CLI tool that was just released. You can create tables dynamically, and sorry, not dynamically. You can do them through your command line. And then when we created mobile services, the REST API that's on top of our database got created automatically. So we already saw how that works. And I already talked about dynamic schema. So you can turn that on and off. So we can create also, what I'm going to show you right now is how to create the scripts that it can intercept the GRUD pipeline. So you can add a script, your logic in between your GRUD operations. So if I want to, on every insert, if I want something to happen or some kind of logic, let's say I want to send a notification to all my users or I want to validate data, I can easily do that on mobile services. I'll show you how to do that right now. And then there's a lot of supported modules that come on when you want to create your business logic or your server logic. We have MS SQL, so you can write queries, SQL queries directly on the server. We have the request module, so you can do HTTP requests to some other services outside of your application, so like Twitter API. You can do, we have the console module, which allows you to do logging. So you have console.warn, console.error. We have the push module, which allows you to do push notifications or send push notifications, and then I'll show you how to use that soon. We have the tables module, which is very powerful. And I think it replaces the MySQL, MS SQL module. You can do really rich JavaScript queries on all your tables, and you can get different kinds of data from your tables. You don't even have to use MS SQL. And then status codes are used to respond to any of your requests. And that's an actual MS SQL query that you can write. You can write it, or you can use tables and actually get the table and say, I just want these. So we don't expect you to actually write this. Yeah. And then the type mapping. Right now, we're still in preview. So we only have these types. So when they translate from JSON values, all numeric values translate to a float. And then all Boolean values translate to a bit. Datetime values translate to a datetime offset, and strings translate to an varchar. And then we expect to add more types as the service grows. And by GA, we expect to have a lot more. OK, so let's add some server logic on our application so we can actually validate some data. I'm going to go back to my portal. And I'm going to go back to the data and drill into my table, my to-do item table. And if you notice on top, there's a script tab. So if you go into script, you can actually see all the different operations right there. So you can have on each operation, you can actually add your own logic. And so I want to do on my insert request, I want to, let's say, validate that the text on my to-do item is more than five characters. So actually, I have that over here. I hate coding on stage. Here we go. So basically, simply, we grab the item. We say if we want the text to be less, if it's less than 5, simply respond with a bet request. And you can have a custom code. So say text is too short. Otherwise, go ahead and execute the operation, and that will insert it into the table. So you can do operations before you've inserted something to check. You can do it after you've inserted. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to do basic. Oh, sorry.
Is this JavaScript?
This is JavaScript, yes. I think it's both on top of Node.js, so you have all these modules that already come with you. Can everyone see this? Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and save this. And that's it. It's already live on Azure. So I'm going to run the application again. And let's try to add an item that's, actually let's try an item that's 5 characters. Let's add an item that's less than 5 characters. And that crashed with an exception. And you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but here we have our custom text that we said text is too short. So you can handle this in your client side, but the validation actually happens on the server side. Any questions? Yes.
So for those who are not familiar with JavaScript, is there like a collection of these are the common validations that you need to do? And
yes. If there's a really nice guide here, like for example, if you click on here, it's going to give you how to use scripts. There's different modules you can use, modify the request, modify the response. There's a lot of actual examples that you can use, and I think it's actually pretty complete. It helps a lot. Yeah. Any questions? Yes?
Is there like IntelliSense on that, or how do you know like
there's some version of IntelliSense, but it doesn't work that well. They expected by the time that this thing hits GA that it would actually be a lot better. But right now, it's not the greatest. No. We don't know. Okay. So let's go back to our slides. Let's talk about push notifications. Who here has actually used push notifications on Windows 8 apps, other than Jeremy? Okay, good. So the way push notifications work is what you see here in the green is what actually been given to you already, so that's been created for you. And what you see in the blue is something that you have to do yourself. So you have to create the app yourself. Yeah. So in mobile services, you have to write the logic to actually to send the push notifications. So the way push notifications work in general is your application, first of all, has to request a channel URI from the notification cloud platform. This channel URI is unique to your application, and that's how WNS actually knows where to send this notification. So when you have this channel URI, you actually send this to mobile services, and mobile services stores this channel URI so it knows where to send push notifications. So you just register that with mobile services. Yes?
So that's where all my confusion has been. So the channel URI, is that specific to the application or the instance of that application? Like if I have
it's specific to the instance. Each URI is specific to the instance of your application. Your application has a package ID, which is specific to the whole application. And when you request the channel URI, you get one unique URI for each specific application. So the same application on my machine will have different channel URI than your application. Yeah, they're different. And then when mobile services decides that it needs to send a push notification either by a script that you've written or by a scheduler script you've written, it would authenticate with push notification service, with WNS service. It would say, hey, I need to send a push notification. And would tell it, hey, this is the channel URI I want to send this notification to. And then WNS will actually take that and send it to your application. And then the notification cloud platform will go ahead and render your toast or update the live tile and do what kind of notification you've sent. To do that with mobile services, mobile services allows you to send toast notifications, do live tile updates, do badge updates, and you can actually set raw notifications if you wanted to. And then to authenticate with WNS service, I'll show you how to do this. In Azure portal, you have to enter your WNS credentials, your client secret and package SID, so it knows how to authenticate to WNS. And then simply in your code, you use the push namespace. And actually, WNS is for Windows Store, but you can actually use APS and for iOS and for Windows Phone. There's a different namespace to send push notifications. And then here, I'll show you what kind of functions you can use here. But you can simply say, send toast text 01, and then you send what the text is, and it just sends it for you. Yes?
Is there regional push services, or is it global? Like you're just talking one service? The application always registers one service.
Yes, the WNS is just one service that's by Microsoft. Yeah. So let's go ahead and I'm going to add a push notification. Each time we insert an item, I want to send a toast notifications to each one of my applications that have been registered. So I'm going to go back to my code. I'm going to I need to create. Sorry. So is everyone familiar with the portal here, the Windows 8 application portal? Anybody not familiar? Yeah. So this is where you actually submit your applications when you've created it. So you go here, you log in, and you say, I want to submit an app. And you do that. And you say, so that first thing I have to give it a name. So this allows you to actually register your application name. And you need to do this in order to get a package ID, in order to get notifications. So I'm going to reserve this name. So I don't have to submit my application now, and I just reserve my name so nobody else can take it, and I can keep that for a year. But this allows me to actually authenticate my application with WNS with a package ID. So this already gave me a package ID. And I can go back to Visual Studio. Let me stop this from running. OK. And if I right-click on my project, I can just simply go to Store and associate app with the store. And I can just use my developer credentials. And this will give me a list of all the applications I've registered. Here's the one I just registered. And then this automatically will set up my package name, the package ID, to what I have in the store. So I automatically do all the work for me, so I don't have to go to the package manifest and copy all these values myself. I just associate it, and we're done on this side. Then I need to go back to Azure and actually give it our credentials for push. So if you see there's a push tab above, right here. So you just need to provide your client secret and package SID so it knows where to send notifications and how to authenticate. To do that, you will need to go to your live portal for applications. Sorry, let me get the link for that. It was this one. And here you can see all the applications you've registered. So I simply go to the applications that I just registered. I can go to Edit Settings, API Settings. I can see my client secret and my package SID right here. So I just simply copy this. So this is just one thing. You have to do this once to make sure you can authenticate. There we go. And let me just save that. And we're done with that part. OK, so let me go back to my code. And I'm going to go through the 3 steps I just talked about, that I need to request the channel URI and store that in my mobile services. So in my app.xaml.cs, each time I run the application, so in the onLaunch method, I need to request a channel URI and then send that to mobile services. Now I have to have a way to store that in mobile services, so I'm going to create a new type called channel. So a new class. It's very simple. All it has is just a string of a URI, and this is just a way to keep track of all the different URIs. It's just a way of mobile services to keep track of all different URIs for all the app instances. And then here, I can just do a channel request. So what this code does, sorry. Actually, let me resolve all these things. And of course, I have to make this a sync because I'm using a wait. Here we go. OK. So what we do here is first we just call push notification channel manager, and we just say, hey, I need a channel URI. Can you just give me one? And we store that in CH. And then here, what we do, we create a new channel with that CH. We first check to see if we've already created one, if we already sent one before. So we check our local settings on our machine, see, hey, is this application run before, basically? And if it hasn't, we simply say, OK, insert the new channel ID into our new table. So I call mobile services get table. So I get the channel table, which I'll create soon. I haven't created it yet. And then I'll simply say insert a sync to the channel ID. And then I store it in local settings, so I know next time I run the application that I've already created a channel ID, so I don't have to insert a new one. And then if I've already created one and I've already pushed it to mobile services, I simply update it with the new URI. URIs update. They expire, so you have to make sure that each time you run the application, you update it in your service. Or even better, you can have a background service that does that for you. OK, so let's go back to mobile services. I'm going to go to data, and I just need to create the channel table so we can actually store our channels. And I'm going to go inside and actually show you that this doesn't have any columns right now. So I'm going to go and say, so you only have one column. And we'll see after I insert the first channel, it's going to create the column itself. Okay, so one last thing. Let's add our script. So on the insert, each time we insert, we want to send a push notification. And let me walk over this code. So on insert, we execute the request, so we insert the item first. And then on success, we call the send notification item. So each time we insert an item, we send a notification. And the send notification function, it grabs the channel table. So here we use the table module I mentioned before, and we just get an instance of the channel table. And then for each one of the channels that are in our table, we simply call push.wns.send toast image and text 03. So it's who's familiar with toast templates or live templates? Most of you are not. Okay, so let me show you actually what what I mean by toast template 304. Yeah, it's confusing. If you just search for toast catalog or Windows 8 toast catalog, you can actually see all the different toast types you can have. So here's the name for each one. So you can just see here, if I want one that has an image and has 3 lines of 3 strings, or if I just want with no image. So you choose the right one you want. And then in mobile services, I just call the toast image and text 03. I give it the channel URI. I say super awesome 2D item inserted. Here's text 2, and then I have an image that I have on blob storage. I just give it the URL. You can have image stored anywhere. And then if that's successful, I log it. If it's not successful, I just log an error. Let me just run that, and let's run our application one more time. Okay. So we run the application, and that grabs channel URI and stores it in mobile services. And then each time I add an item now, we should get a toast. There you go. Super awesome 2D item inserted. Yeah, you have a question?
What is the limit of for the maximum number of toasts an app can send a day?
I don't think there's actual limit to how many toasts you can send. There's 3 max they can show. So if you keep sending them, it's just 3 of them are gonna show up, and then one's gonna expire, a new one's gonna show up, and then your user's gonna go and say disable notification, and you just basically annoy the user with notifications. Yeah, that's not a good idea. The toast notifications are meant for, I believe, only emergencies or for like rare occasions. For just common notifications, it's easier to use live tiles. And I'll show you how to do live tiles later also. But if you're not familiar with live tiles, I mean, if you go to your start screen, I'm sure there are applications that just keep changing the data. I'll show you how to do this on your application. Yes?
So in that example, you're broadcasting to all your
Yes.
registered channels. Do you have parameters that you can feed in to target specific users?
Yes, I'm going to talk about auth right now. And when you authorize users, so they can authorize with a different service, what you can do, you can capture that user ID. So you can keep track of which user ID and say, okay, this user ID is registered, wants to get notifications for this one, so grab all the channels that are with this user ID and send notifications to these channel URIs. Yes?
Do you have the code snippets file shared out somewhere?
There's actually a lot better code snippets online if you go to windowsazure.com, and I'll show you the location where. But all these things I'm showing you right now, there's actually very similar examples online. I'll show you where that is. Okay. So let's move on. What happened? Okay. Nope, not that. Okay, so let's talk about auth actually right now. So mobile service allows you to provide authentication to a user through a Microsoft account, Facebook, Google, or Twitter. It gives you a table level permission for each one of the CRUD operations. So if you want to limit, I only want on users that have authenticated with Twitter to insert an item, you can do that easily, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you can get more granular control by using the user level modules and user ID module. For each one, you can keep track of each one. You can say, if this user is an admin, allow him to do this. If not, kick him out. So let's go ahead and add Twitter authentication to our machine, to our application. So first, what I need to do is when you create a new, if you want to allow users to actually log into a service, you usually have to go through and create an application on that service. For example, here on Twitter, you have to create a Twitter application so you can get an API credentials. And I've already done that before, but if you want to do it, the instructions are on Azure, and it only takes about 2 minutes to do it, and it's free. It's the similar instructions for Twitter, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft account. So here, what I need to do is, when I go back to my Azure portal, and go to the Entity tab, it's right next to the Push tab, and here you can see I can add all my application credentials here for each one of the providers. And right now I have Twitter, so I'm just going to copy the Twitter credentials real quick. Copy the consumer secret, and let me save that. And that's it on this side. That's save. And then I'm going to go back to my code, and in my main page.xaml.cs, each time I navigate on the page, I want users to authenticate. So, but before I do that, I actually want to show you what happens if I try to insert an item. Actually, I forgot one thing, sorry. If we go back to my portal, I want to limit what users can actually insert an item. So if I go back to my table of to-do item, I can go to permissions right here, and I can say for insert permission, right now it's set to anybody with the application key. So anybody that enters this application, they can insert items. But if I just do a drop down, I can say I only want authenticated users to insert items. And I can do the same thing with all the other operations. This won't allow anybody to just insert an item. And let's save that. And let's start the application, which I already have. And then let me add an item. And we say unauthorized. So we got an error unauthorized. So this is something you have to handle in your code. So in order to get the user authorized, we have to log them in. So what we simply do, it's one line of code. We simply say, let me add the sync. Here we go. So you simply say logging a sync, and then you insert your provider that you want them to log in. But if you can see there's all you can't see them, but it says the first one's Facebook, Google, Microsoft account, or Twitter. So you can choose which one. You can have multiple ones too. So here, I just do it with Twitter, and let me run this. So this was just one line of code to authenticate the user. So we run the application, automatically takes us to Twitter to actually log in. So let me log in. And I'm now logged in, so let me add an item. And there you go, item has been added. Oh, and we got a notification. Thanks, guy. I added that to the main page, .xaml.cs, so on the unnavigated method. So each time we navigated to the page, or we started the application in this case, it executed this line saying, hey, log in the user. I want to authenticate the user.
If you previously authenticated, would it pop up that dialog, or would it just go?
Right now, it will ask you to log in again. It doesn't persist the login, so you have to keep logging in. There's ways to persist the login, but they're more complicated. Yeah. Yes?
If you had done this with a Microsoft account, you'd be working with the credentials on the machine. Would you then log in automatically, or would you see this UI?
You can. There's two ways. If you just simply create a Microsoft account, you can do it. It's going to be the same way. You have to log in each time. Or you can use the Live SDK, in which case it grabs the credentials from the machine and just passes the token to mobile services and logs the user in as the user that's logged into the machine. The first time you run it, it's going to ask you if you want to give it permission and all that mumbo jumbo. But after that, the user is going to be logged in. Any questions? Okay. Let's move on. Yes?
Can you use that authentication token later in your app for stuff that doesn't have to do with data services? Like, can you just use that as your authentication? And not, let's say you wanted to do user-specific things in your app that don't relate to the service itself?
Yes. Basically, when you authenticate, you get a user ID. And you can take this user ID and store in your table. And when user inserts, you can grab this user ID and associate it with this item that got inserted. So you can keep track of which users insert what item, which users own what item, which users have registered what kind of service. So and you get the idea. You get to use, you can do whatever you want with the user ID. Yeah. And of course, you can use it to get data from the service as well through your scripts. Yeah.
Questions?
Okay. Let's talk about Scheduler. So Scheduler was actually something that just got added about 3 weeks ago, I believe. It allows you to run scripts on a schedule, so you can do it every like 15 minutes, or you can do it every third day of the month, or you can do it on demand. And some of the examples, and this is a long list, but some of the better examples is you can periodically purge data or even back up your database at a specific time. You can pull and aggregate third-party services like get Twitter tweets or get RSS feeds and load them into your database. You can do processing, like you can resize images. You can send push notifications, send emails. You can even send text messages. And there's a lot of examples on Azure.com where you can actually see how to do all those things. So let's go ahead and create a little schedule. I'm going to go back to my Azure portal. You go back here and go to the Scheduler tab. And right now I don't have anything, so I'm going to create a new schedule. And let me name this guy. Just poll Twitter. I'm going to set it to 15 minutes. And let that create. Okay, so now it's created, so let's drill inside. So we can see that it was never run, and then the next run is never, since it hasn't been enabled. And to enable it, we just simply press the enable button. And then to run it on demand, we could just say run once. It's just going to run it immediately. Right now, if you go to the script tab, you can see that it just has the default script. It's a console don't warn. If I run this, it's actually just going to add a log to the log. There you go. I can actually show you the log right now. So if you go to logs, you can see all the logs for all your services. And this is stuff I've done before. But this is the newest one. So you can see you're running an empty scheduled job, update a script for job, pull writer, disabled job. So that's a very easy way to debug your scripts. So let's go back to our scheduler and actually add a script. And I have the script here. So this script goes out to Twitter. Of course, you have to remember to have the same name of your function as your scheduler. So this script goes out to Twitter and grabs the latest tweets that have my handle as part of the tweet and gives me only 2 of them. So you can use Twitter API to do whatever. You can use any other services. And then here, for each one of the tweets, we call the send notification method. And the send notification method grabs each tweet and then grabs the channel table. And for each channel, it sends a tile notification or a live tile. So here we use the send tile white, small, image, and text of 4. And similar as with the toast. Okay, wait, nope, it's the wrong thing. Similar as with the toast notification, there's a whole catalog of these, and it's a lot bigger. So you can see there's a lot of different things you can send. Just spend an hour on that thing. And we go back to Azure. So, and for each one, it just sends a live tile to our application. Now I'm going to save this, and before I run it, in order to receive a wide live tile, which I'm doing here, my application will have to have a white tile logo. And by default, it doesn't, only has the small logo, the square logo. So in order to receive the white tiles, I have to set up, I have to add an image. So I'm going to go back to my manifest and simply just add an image here for my white tile. I already have one. I just did this one in Paint. Here we go. And let me run this application. I don't want to log in right now. And wait, Azure. Here we go. So let me run this script. And if we go back here, here's our application. And then we see there's a tweet that just popped up as a live tile. And so you notice I didn't write any code to update the live tile. Well, that's a previous application I was testing this with. Yeah, install that. So I didn't write any code on the Windows side, on the Windows client side, to update the live tile. And before I didn't write any code to send those notifications. This was all handled through WNS and the notification service that runs on Windows. Any questions? Yes?
The server-side code.
Yes. If you as I mentioned before, you have the console module. So you can say, for example, I think he already has it here. No, but here for each one, I can just say console.log this works. And if I run this, let me save it first. There we go. So I can go back here, and then if you notice on top, you have logs at the end. So you can see all your previous logs each time you've done it. And the channel expired, of course. So I have older channels in the table. But here you say for each tweet, I have 2 channels. I just call this worked. Any other questions? Oh, OK. Let's go back to earlier slides. Okay, let's move on to diagnostics, logging, and scale. For diagnostics, we give you a very easy way to monitor your API calls, how many you've made, how much CPU time you've used, and how much data you've sent out. We use, as I mentioned, for logging, you have the console module, so you can do errors, logs, and warnings. Scaling. So if your application gets popular and you need to scale it up, you can scale it out to a dedicated VM. In the free mode, you get it. It's shared VM, so you share a VM with multiple users. But if you want to have your own dedicated VM, you can easily just purchase a VM and move your mobile services to that, and then you can scale it out to multiple instances. And then same thing with your database. You can scale out to your own database, and then you can scale up to any capacity you want. Okay, let me show you that in the portal, actually. So in dashboard, if you go to dashboard, this is the diagnostic part. So I've done some API calls and things. So you can see actually here, the red is the API calls. I've done 18 here, 18 there. And then here, I've used 2.58 seconds CPU time, sent out 40 kilobytes. You can see some other information here. If you go to the logs, I already show you this. You can see all the logs for your application. So if something goes wrong, oh wait, something went wrong, you can find out. It gives you, I think it gives you what line of code and everything too. Not this one, but some of them do. And then in scale, so this is where you actually scale up your application. So right now it's in free, so that's the default. You can move it to reserved. And here, of course, it says I've removed the spending limit on my account. You have to pay for a VM, so you have to purchase your VM. And while it's in preview mode, it has a 33% discount, just like websites. So you keep that in mind if you need to do that. And then here you can scale out your instance. At max is 3 right now, but that could increase. And then for your database, you can increase the size, or you can scale it out to a larger size in your own. Yes?
Federation?
Excuse me?
Does the DB use federation? Will it scale to the chart?
Sorry.
If you have a large set of data, will it all store it in one?
Unfortunately, it doesn't migrate the data when you move into your own to a dedicated database. So you have to probably write your own script at this point to migrate the data to the new database.
I think my question was a little different, but I can send you.
Okay, I can talk to you after. Yeah. Any questions?
Just really quickly,
yes.
The scripts of your CPU time cycle mainly, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else that
I'm not actually really sure. I can ask somebody, but we'll talk after. Yeah. Okay, and then if you want to use mobile services, it's free. But if you don't have any of these subscriptions, for example, you probably have to pay for the database. And the minimal database you can purchase is 100 megabytes, and that's $5 a month. But if you have one of these subscriptions, you get databases for free. So mobile services is free. And then here, I'm sure most of you here have an MSDN account. So if you go to MSDN, you can see you have 5 database units. Yeah. And here we go in summary. So we talked about how to connect your application to mobile services, how to store your data, how to write service scripts, authentication, how to send notifications, how to use the scheduler, diagnostic and data, logging and data, and diagnostics, and how to scale applications. Here are some useful resources. So WindowsAzure.com has a lot of good information, has a lot of samples and a lot of tutorials that our team here has created, and a lot of videos that you can go through. If you have any questions, you can use Twitter or here, Cloud Nick. That's one of the main guys in DP Corp that actually deals with mobile services. So he has a very good resource if you have any questions for mobile services. Chris Reisner is also a very good resource for if you write your application iOS or Android. And demos are here. I can actually show you. Wait. Oh, this is the training kit, which actually has a lot of good information about how to write your applications. But let's go to Windows Azure. And develop. And you have a lot of tutorials here, and you can just go, hey, how to do start with push, how to do authentication, etc. Any questions? I think we're done right now. Yes?
So back to the authentication, you mentioned that the authenticated user gets an ID, and I'm imagining that the object that you're storing in the table would have an ID property, and you would set the ID property.
What you can do is actually, when you go to mobile services, and the recommended way to handle that is, let me find it. Why is this not working? Okay, so the best way to do it, so if I go to data, and let's say I have a script, get to the item. So on my insert script, before I insert my item, I can simply, script, insert. So let's say I want to keep track of the user ID. So what I can do, I can just say item.userid, and this creates a new field on my item. I can just say equals to user.id. So the user item that you see up there is actually the authenticated user that's sent, and that has an ID. And I can just store the item. I can just create a new field on my item, and that automatically create a new field, a new column if it hasn't been created, and you store the ID of each user.
And then the read operations can be filtered by
user ID. Yes, so you can say user ID is this. Do it. Yeah. You can, even if you do it, if you want to do it on the server side, if you on the read, you can say for any request, you can say only request these guys that have this user ID. So it's going to pass you a user, say only the user that passed me, that requested this, only give them these objects. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about strategies for organizing your application? So for example, if I have an underlying mobile service, but yet I'm also targeting both a Windows 8 tablet, a Windows 8 phone, and iOS, how best to kind of organize that and also manage, for example, the skinning part?
The scaling part?
The skinning, the UI part.
Oh, the UI part? Yeah, mobile service.
Business logic.
Yeah, the SDK, the mobile service SDK for example, Windows Phone and Windows Phone 8 and Windows 8 is very similar. And you can put that in one same module that will communicate with Windows Azure. However, if you want to say the UI, that would have to be separate for each one of your applications. So you can have a shared module for your mobile services, for all your data, for your backend stuff, but then the UI part will have to be done separately.
So the question is really, is it the same instance of this mobile web service that is applicable to send push notifications to the phones as well as
no, so you have to keep track of the channel URI for each one. Excuse me. So when you send, for example, let's say you send a channel URI for a Windows 8 application, you have to specify that this is a Windows 8 application. So, and then when you store it in the table, you just can have another field that says this is a Windows 8 channel URI, and this is a Windows Phone channel URI. And then when you send a notification, you can use the different namespaces under push. So you can do push.wns for Windows 8. So you can just check, okay, is this a Windows 8 URI? Send it to this. Use this method. Is this a Windows Phone URI? Use this method. It's just a if and else statement, basically.
But when I will be setting up my phone app or my phone project, then I will be using the same credentials that were offered to
Yes, use the exact
That's how it knows that it needs to talk to the same.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's basically that's just the API key. You can use it from any machine that it actually talks to it by REST. So it uses REST APIs and just passes that API key each time. Yeah.
So is there a way to sniff, for example, the incoming request to determine whether it's a Windows 8 tablet or phone Or is it purely by looking at the channel?
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to find out. So find me after, and I'll get you information. Yes?
The channels don't last forever, right?
No, yes, they expire. So that's the reason why each time we run the application, we update the channel in our table to the most recent one. So the most effective way you would want to do that is probably have a background service on your Windows 8 that just runs occasionally and just grabs a new channel URI and then updates it in mobile services.
So how does the server know which channels have been expired so it doesn't send
It doesn't. If you notice when I went to log, you basically just have to do that on your client side. So you keep track if you've already sent out channel URI in your local settings. So I already showed how to do that. I think if you go back here. So here I'm saying, okay, if I already sent a channel URI, and if I haven't, I simply insert it if I have, and I update it. And the way I do that, I use local settings. So if you haven't used local settings, what local settings allows you to do is just, it's sort of like a registry. You say, I want to save this value under this key here in local settings, and that's persistence throughout your lifecycle of your application. So if you close your application and open it up again, this will stay after you've defined it. So if you already defined this, you only have to update it. If you haven't defined it, it's the first time you run it, so you just push it. And then you can have a scheduler job that actually goes through each one of your channel URIs and checks if they've been expired or not, and then just purges the old data.
How do you check it's expired?
You just have to keep track. You have to, for example, you can add here on my class, I can add another field that just keeps track of when it was created. And channel URIs usually expire after 30 days. So you can just check if it's older than 30 days, just go ahead and purge that data. If it's expired, there's no really way to, I don't think there is, but I can find out, to actually check just by the URI. But that would just skip over it and then go to the next one. Sorry.
So, what's the recommended way to store the login credentials so that user doesn't have to enter it again and again each time we...
Sorry, what's that?
What's the recommended way to store the user information? Like each time you insert an item, now you have to fill in a login.
Can you repeat the question?
Excuse me?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, the question is, what's the best way to store the user information on, you talk about mobile service, on mobile services or on the client?
Like right now, if you insert an item, it asks for, or each time you open an app, it asks you for the login and password.
It doesn't ask me each time I insert an item. It asks me each time I start my application. So throughout my application, it still keeps the user logged in. If you want to keep the user keep logged in throughout, if you want the login to persist throughout your application, there's ways to do it. It's a bit more involved than I can do it right now, but there are ways to do it, and I believe the only way to do it is with Microsoft account at this point.
Yeah, can you just automatically use the...
Yes, if you use the Life SDK, you can actually use that SDK to log in the user and then pass that token to your mobile service. And each time you boot up your application, you can just grab that token and pass it to mobile service, and that will automatically log in the user. So you don't even have to prompt the user. Only you have to do it once. Any other questions? Okay, so we're done here. So if you guys have any questions, you can come up, but I think that's the end of the public transmission. Yeah.